In 2016, IO Interactive rebooted the Hitman franchise under the banner of the World of Assassination. But a confusing release structure leading to poor sales meant that 47's legacy was in jeopardy, despite the game being the best that the series has ever been. A shock then that after being dropped by publisher Square Enix as a result, and then having to massively downsize, the studio went on to release Hitman 2 in 2018. And the fact that we've now made it as far as Hitman 3 is nothing short of a miracle, and a testament to that studio's perseverance in refining and improving what has now become a gold standard for myself and other Hitman players. Hitman is ostensibly a stealth action game set in huge clockwork sandbox levels, and it absolutely is that game should you wish it to be. But dig a little deeper and you find that really this game is a murder puzzle action simulation stealth game, where observation, exploration, experimentation and patience are handsomely rewarded with incredibly satisfying solutions. Every level in these games is so broad in terms of approach that different sections of the map feel like different levels in and of themselves, and however you choose to approach the assassination gives you widely different outcomes, and can feel like you're playing a different game entirely. Approaching your target is achieved through stealth both in the traditional sense, but also utilising the classic disguise system, where ever greater levels of security require different kinds of disguises to make your way past guards of varying degrees of diligence. The levels are so smartly designed that very often it's instinctively known to the player which disguise will work where, who will be fooled by them, and what you need to do in order to progress. If you spend enough time exploring the public spaces where 47 is allowed to be, you'll overhear conversations which can give you a light bulb moment on what you can do to infiltrate security or to assassinate your targets.
It's Aaron, sir, from the firm. I came as quickly as I could. Yes, sir, I have the files.
The games have an incredible aesthetic, but it's also made very clear to the player where they stand in terms of their subterfuge. It doesn't waste any time with ambiguous rules or assumptions, instead showing you precisely where you are or are not allowed to be, and who on the map will know that you are very much not who you are trying to impersonate. When your disguises rumble, you're often not immediately fired upon, instead raising suspicion and being given a chance to disappear into a crowd, break line of sight, and reassess your approach. The number of mechanics here that you can utilise to circumvent an area's security measures are simply too numerous to list. Suffice it to say that your options and opportunities for experimentation feel endless. Once you understand the very strict rules that govern the game's NPCs, everything becomes predictable in a satisfying way, and you begin to understand how throwing a wrench into the machine can be to your benefit. It's impressive how fluidly the simulation reacts to pieces being removed from the board, and it's very satisfying to set in motion something which can cause the whole situation to spin out of control. Given that you're able to disguise yourself as practically anyone, including NPCs which others know personally or have only just interacted with before your intervention, a certain amount of suspension of disbelief is required. However, more often than not, this simply adds to the game's charm and its brilliantly dark sense of humour.
You look like a lawyer, all right. You got that killer instinct.
It's a gift.
All right, you're on the clock, Aaron. Dazzle me.
These levels are designed to be replayed over and over again with an XP system leading to unlockable insertion points and smuggled weapons, ensuring that you're able to squeeze out every last drop of gameplay and experiment to your heart's content. While you're picking your way through these levels, though your patience may be tested as you observe guard routes and understand what makes people tick, the NPC dialogue is so intricate and well written that you're often eavesdropping on very insightful or hilarious conversations, every mission containing within them dozens of mini-stories to find. It's difficult to overstate just how dense these levels are. Years later I can go back to an old mission and still find conversations and interactions that I hadn't seen before, and it's particularly fascinating when you manipulate the NPCs and watch what they do, including assassinating one target and watching the other learn about it in real time. In Hitman 3, we see the conclusion of the overarching story that has cut across the trilogy. It isn't the best or the most coherent story, but it's often well told, and in this game, IO has experimented with some gameplay set pieces that allow the story to weave seamlessly into the Hitman experience. These set pieces remain optional, and while they feel like the canon way to play these levels, I never felt like they got in the way of the core Hitman sandbox. The maps are easily some of the best the series has to offer, with particular highlights in having the opportunity to disguise yourself as a private detective and solve an entirely different murder in an opulent British stately home, or stumbling across a rave held in an old warehouse in rural Berlin. In the latter mission, you start with no information on who your target is, having instead to infiltrate the rave and find your targets, who themselves are assassins sent to take you out. They're disguised and have infiltrated the simulation in the same way that you do. It's difficult to find any aspect of the maps in Hitman 3 which I don't like. The best experience in these games are being able to surreptitiously observe the lifestyles of the obscenely rich, as well as going behind the scenes of public spaces through those staff-only doors that you're not allowed to in real life, and see the facade give way to exposed pipes and dirt and get an insight into the lives of normal people running the show. The maps in Hitman 3 have this experience in spades. The game allows you to bring across your progress and import every level from the previous 2 games, along with all the gadgets and weapons. If you own all 3 games, this results in an absolutely immense package, with over 20 levels worth of content, all running on the enhanced graphics on the proprietary engine IO has built upon. This does mean that there has to be a certain level of standardization in terms of mechanics to make sure that you can't break legacy missions using equipment obtained in Hitman 3. This means that while Hitman 3 does feel very different in a lot of ways, the core gameplay remains largely unchanged. If you're a Hitman aficionado, you'll be right at home here, and you can get stuck into manipulating the new simulations without delay, but you're not going to find any new abilities outside of gadgets that make certain actions easier, and in terms of Hitman 3's gadget unlocks, it's pretty disappointing in this regard, with most of them being reskins of old gadgets. It's an understandable limitation, but we'll need to wait until a potential new series of games before we see massive changes to the mechanics. The only other glaring issue with this game is the always online requirement. In the back of my mind, I can't help wondering whether people will still be able to play this game in a decade's time after the servers have been withdrawn, but for now, outside of some issues at launch, this isn't a massive problem. Every single level here is also designed to be possible to complete without using the disguise system, and with only killing your targets in a fashion which won't arouse suspicion, resulting in the coveted Silent Assassin suit-only rating. This is something which I absolutely revelled in achieving for every level, and is largely responsible for my embarrassingly high XP level, which I've been adding to since 2016. Hitman has found some deserved success in recent years, but a game of this high quality is in my view deserving of so much more. With IO moving on to a new game using the 007 IP, this marks the conclusion of Agent 47's adventure for now, and it is absolutely a worthy conclusion. Given the context of the bumpy ride this series has had in recent years, it is, in many ways, a flawless execution. I've been Steve Leyland for the Cross Players, and for more of this gaming nonsense, live streams, reviews, podcasts, join us at any of the respectable outlets on screen now.